I'm Mark Dawson from the Self-Publishing Show, and this is Self-Publishing Spotlight, where we shine a light on the indie authors who are changing the world of publishing, one book at a time.
Hello and welcome to the Self-Publishing Spotlight. We meet indie authors at all stages of their careers and ask them a series of 5 questions. 5 questions about their process, their mistakes and their successes. 5 answers that will help you level up your own author career. My name's Tom Ashford and I'm part of the Self-Publishing Formula. Don't forget that you can get your self-publishing resource kit at selfpublishingformula.com/starter kit. This week's guest is James P. Sumner. He's written 15 books in the thriller genre and he lives in the UK. Welcome, James.
Hi, thank you very much for having me, Tom.
Great to have you on. Would you like to start by talking about the series that you have in your thriller books?
Yeah, of course. My main series centres around an assassin called Adrian Hell. I'm currently putting the finishing touches to the 8th novel in that particular series. They've proven very popular over the last few years. I suppose it's somewhat unique in the genre in that the stories are told through the eyes of the characters, so it's first person and it's real time. So you're very much kind of discovering the story as he is in that respect, and I think that kind of slightly different approach to the genre is what's proved quite popular with people. Yeah.
Very cool. Okay, if jump straight in with the questions. We've got question 1, which is, why do you write?
Why do I write? It's kind of a weird kind of therapy, I think, for me. It's escapism. It's the same reason why people watch Netflix or go to the movies. You know, I write to escape, and I do it for me, and I'm able to put into my stories aspects of myself and of my own kind of life as, I don't know, I suppose as a way of transferring it in that respect. I find it quite therapeutic, and I think it adds a lot to the stories as well. And you know, that again, that's what seems to have made it popular. But yeah, I write for myself.
Yeah, and was there a particular reason that you chose the thriller genre to write in rather than anything else?
It was very much a case of stick with what you know. Thrillers are predominantly what I read, what I used to read when I was growing up. So it made sense to me to stick with the genre that I know as a reader what to expect from that. So it made sense to approach it from a creative point of view as well.
Yeah, and was there a reason why you chose you say the first person and did you say present tense? Was it?
Yeah, first person, present tense. Again, that was very much a challenge to myself, because before I decided to sort of sit down and really make an effort with the writing and really make a go of it, I did a fair bit of research, and a lot of sort of traditional industry people said it's a very difficult and limiting way to write your stories, because obviously you can only tell it from one perspective, and I kind of viewed that as a challenge, because the thing that appeals to me is what goes on inside the characters' heads.
Right.
And it was kind of a challenge to myself, because I mean, my main character is an assassin. You know, he's not going to win any humanitarian awards or anything, and it's very much the challenge for myself was to get people to like him despite what he does. And I thought the best way to do that was for you to understand him. So therefore, the stories are very much his own inner dialogue, kind of drives the narrative in that way. And again, that's been the appeal of the series, the fact that despite all the terrible things that he has to do, my readers still email me now and say, I'd love to sit down and have a beer with him, because he's just the kind of guy that, you know, you relate to.
Yeah. Okay. And in terms of your publishing history, you traditionally published, self-published, or hybrid?
No, I'm full indie. I'm proud of that. I did try the traditional route. I think everybody is guilty of submitting to agents at some point. But I've never been traditionally published. No.
Yeah. Would you want a traditional contract if one came along?
Honestly, I don't know. I think obviously it opens up more doors, I think, at this stage in the industry than being sort of doing it for yourself does. But at the same time, it takes a lot of the control over your product away from you, and I'm quite OCD about it, in that I don't think anybody could do it as well as I could, in that I know the characters. I wouldn't want to change things because somebody told me to. I would want to change things if I believed they were right to do. And I'm not convinced I could hand over the reins in that respect. So no, I think I would stick to myself.
Yeah. Okay, question number 2 is, how do you write? So do you sit down and plot your stories out before you start, or do you just see where the stories take you?
For the most part, I tend to just, as they call a seat of the pants kind of writer. I tend to just sit down with a blank page and see what happens. I found that works best for me simply because of the way that the stories are written. As I say, because it all happens in real time through the character's eyes, it's as if I'm standing behind him and just writing down what he's doing, as opposed to sort of telling a story in the traditional formulaic way. And that makes it exciting for me, and if I'm enjoying the process, then I'm pretty sure the readers are going to enjoy what comes out of it. And that's how I've always looked at it. There is an element of plotting in that I like to know kind of where I'm starting and where I'm ending, but how I get from A to B, that's very much up to the character in that way. I just kind of document what he does.
Yeah. Is there a particular software that you like to use?
I'm pretty basic, really. I use Microsoft Word. I'm not. I tried Scrivener and I couldn't get to grips with it instantly, and then got really impatient because I didn't want to put the time in to learn. And that's just my personal choice. Word is fine for me. I use formatting services and things to do all the technical stuff. So Word is more than sufficient for what I do.
Yeah, I mean, as long as you can get the words on the page, it doesn't really matter.
Well, that's it. That's all that matters, really. I mean, I do use, I have Microsoft Office, so I do use OneNote to kind of for any planning and plotting and things, which that program, I think, functions in very much the same way as like the corkboard feature of Scrivener. So, for that aspect, for what planning I do actually do. That's more than sufficient.
Yeah. Is there a particular time and place that you enjoy writing?
It's normally just when I feel like it and what's available. I try not to keep things too structured in that I don't have a specific time period of the day where I write. I just know that it's something I need to do every day, so I make sure I do. I fit it in around other things, but I try and keep it flexible, because I think if it becomes too structured, you start putting pressure on yourself. It can get to 2:00 in the afternoon, like, oh God, I've not hit the word count target set for myself, and then you start to panic, and then you start to rush, and then the words become a job and they become terrible. I prefer to keep it kind of fluid and flexible, but it's something I make sure I do every day.
Yeah. Well, that leads us into question 3, which is, are you a full-time author? If you are, how did you get there? And if you aren't, what steps are you taking to make it happen?
So it's a bit of a long story, that, really, because I am a full-time author, but I've actually chosen to stop being a full-time author.
Oh.
I've been writing for 6 years. The first 3 years of which I was working full-time and writing part-time, aiming to become a full-time author. Having been a full-time author for just over 3.5 years now, honestly, I personally don't think it's all it's cracked up to be. I think it's a goal. It's something that a lot of people aim for, which is fine. And if that's what you want to do, then that's great. I aimed for it and I achieved it. In no small part to the self-publishing formula. I must throw that in there. Thank you, Mark. But I've done that and I achieved it. And when I got there, I found that it suddenly requires a lot more time and effort that needs to be taken away from writing. And that never quite sat well with me, because I wanted to write because I enjoy it, not because I have to do it, not because it's a job. I think it's that old adage, when your hobby becomes your job, it loses sort of a fundamental quality of what made it your hobby in the first place. And that, I don't think that is for everyone. Some people are more business minded, which is great. I'm not. I'm creative minded in that I like the writing, but I don't like the business side that comes with it.
Yeah. Well, I don't think that's particularly unusual. I guess it's not common to hear that in the indie community, which is great to have a new perspective on it. But obviously, you think of all the different writers who take traditional publishing contracts because they don't want to do the business side.
Yeah, absolutely. And the traditional side of things does kind of offer a way out of that, because it negates the need to learn how to market your books. You don't have to worry about any promotion, any formatting, anything. You just write the book and you hand it over, and that's fine. I tried doing, as I say, the traditional route early days, and it always makes me laugh, because you see that story that always does the rounds on social media about J.K. Rowling and how she struggled and she had to deal with 12 rejections before she was made into a multi-billionaire. And it's like, I had like 200. 12 nothing.
Yeah.
Who are you? You know, but it's. I tried the traditional thing, and it didn't work for me then. I don't know if it would work for me now. I would want to keep the creative side of things, but I don't want the pressure of the business side of things. And to me, the obvious answer to that was you go back to working full time, where you can write in your spare time. It can go back to being your escapism. It can go back to being just for you. You can still publish it. You still know how to do that, but there's absolutely no pressure financially to make it work.
Yeah.
And I found I can split my career of 6 years into two, right down the middle. And the first 3 years, when I worked full time and wrote part time, were far more successful as an author than the 3 years where I worked full time as an author. Which is, again, it's strange because you think the more time you have, the better you do. But actually, I found it was the opposite for me. So I've kind of gone full circle for the second time now, and I'm back to full time work.
Fair enough. All right. Well, question number 4 is: what mistakes do you think you've made, and what have you got right?
The biggest mistake I made was not learning the business side of things as I learned the publishing side of things. Now, I think learning to publish and market your own book is very different than running the business of an indie publisher. The business side of things is a lot more financial. It requires a lot more organization and patience and a lot more awareness of things like your finances, like finding the right accountant, that kind of thing. And the mistakes I made in that were simply because they were things that I didn't know I had to learn. It's that saying, you don't know what you don't know. And looking back on that time now, I essentially made mistakes and everything kind of bottomed out, and I went back to square one. And then I built it up again through blood, sweat, tears, and paper cuts. And, I got back to where I was. But now that I've done that, it's like, well, it's an achievement and I'm proud of myself for it. But it's a lot of work that's outside of the writing, and it's not something that I any longer want to focus on. So yeah, the mistake, and things might have been different if in the beginning I had more of a business mind, but I don't. That's just not me. I'm very much about the creative and nothing else. So the main mistake I made was ignoring the fact that this is a business. Yeah. I know it's something Mark always kind of hammers home. If you want to be a success, you treat your books like a business. You treat your books like a product and a commodity, and that's absolutely true. And I've been doing that, and for me, it's not something I want to do anymore. In terms of successes, I've never been shy of putting the credit with Mark and his course, because that literally opened the door for me to become a full-time author. And which in turn led to me winning Kindle Scout and winning a couple of literary awards in 2017, which are huge achievements and milestones for me. It's very much the successes come from learning the ropes, and I put more emphasis on learning how to write a good book than I did on how to run the business of marketing them, I think.
Yeah. Though I suppose that's not the worst mistake ever, writing a good book.
Well, no. I mean, at the end of the day, I suppose it's less of a mistake and more of a discovery, I suppose. But at least for me, it just put me back on the right path for myself. It's, if you don't quite know what you're aiming towards, things can get difficult, because you start to question why you're doing anything, and that affects the things that you still like as well as the things that you want to kind of maybe take a step away from. So yeah, it's definitely been a 6-year journey of discovery for me.
Okay, well, question number 5 is: what's your final piece of advice for authors starting out in indie publishing?
My final piece of advice would be to be patient. It's a marathon, not a sprint. It takes time to build it up to a level where it's self-sustainable, and it's important to put the groundwork in to learn how to do that. And if you do it right, then you set yourself up for what could be an incredible career, and more power to you. But if you rush it, you start immediately putting the pressure on what you're doing, and you start needing to take away more from it than perhaps you're ready for, and that can lead to all kinds of unsuccessful ventures, shall we say. I think it's important to, if you've got a clear path in your mind of what you want to achieve, don't rush to do it. Take your time, do it right, and do it smart.
Yeah, well, that's good advice. And those are your 5 questions. So thank you very much for coming on.
Awesome, thank you. It's been great talking to you, Tom. I do appreciate it. Thank you.
That's it for this week's Self-Publishing Spotlight. Don't forget that you can get your free self-publishing resource kit at selfpublishingformula.com/starter kit. And if you want to appear as a guest on this show, send us brief details about yourself and your writing at selfpublishingformula.com/spotlight-guest. I'm Tom Ashford, and I'll see you again next week.